don't price your client based off of your pocket.
Like half of the things that you just listed, I would have never.
And that's why you really have to be intentional with your ordering, down to the last stem. I feel like I'll never get over how my heart hurts when I hear people say that. Once the day is said and done, you're gonna be so much happier knowing that you paid someone to do it so that you didn't have to worry about it. At least put them on the groom because it's his day, it's flowers.
I still want to be able to tell what a penis is, but. Welcome back to the Wedding Vendor Chronicles, the podcast where we take a behind-the-scenes look at the unsung heroes of the wedding industry, the wedding vendors. Today we have a special guest with us, a renowned floral designer who has truly elevated the art of wedding floristry. We'd like to welcome owner and lead florist of Petal Collective, Cydnie. Cydnie, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to share my story with you guys. I feel like this is going to be a great resource for couples and for vendors and people who want to become vendors. So yeah, ready to get into there.
Thanks for being here.
Let's just dive right in. I guess kind of the first thing that, if you don't mind sharing with us, kind of just what it is you do and how you got started in the wedding industry. And
yeah. So I'm a wedding florist. And I just do weddings. I have some people that like to ask if I do like daily arrangements and stuff.
Yeah. I
don't do that. I just do weddings, and then I also do bouquet preservation. So I press flowers and put them in a frame. I started out about 6 years ago, just in like a regular big box store flower shop. And fell in love with it. I didn't know what I wanted to go to college for, so from that I went to school for horticulture at UNL, University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Continued working in various flower shops that whole time, but knew that I didn't really want to have a boss. So as soon as I got out, I just dove in out of school. I dove in and started my business, and it's really snowballed into what it is today. So it's been a really, really great journey.
Awesome. That's amazing. So I think your story is similar to a lot of people in, the wedding industry. Not even just the wedding industry, but small business in general, where it's like you don't really know. Okay, you go to school, don't really know what you're going to go for. You graduate, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? So working in, you called it like a big box floral store?
Yeah, like a grocery store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had this realization where you didn't want to have a boss. Was there a point where you're like, okay, I'm going to just go off on my own. I can do this. Like, what gave you kind of the confidence to be like, forget that. I can do this on my own.
I kind of forget, which I think is really interesting because I feel like I just kind of went into it all of a sudden, and then one day I was there. But I just always liked to call the shots when I was working where I was before, and I felt like I had really good ideas, and I really wanted to do things my way, but you can't always do that when you're working for someone else. So I just went into it blind, and yeah, I really don't remember what gave me the confidence to start, and I'm sometimes surprised that I did. But one day I just ended up doing it, and it's kind of starting with small steps, like, okay, let's get our LLC, and as you continue to take all those small steps, then you end up knee deep in it. So yeah.
And since you went to school for horticulture, I was just curious, what was it about like flowers and like being in the wedding industry with being a florist? Like, what inspired you to do that specifically? Was it like pretty early on in college, or was it even before that? Or
so at first I thought, as I was going to school for horticulture, that I didn't want anything to do with fresh flowers, and I wanted to be more on the growing side. And then once I realized, although these are great jobs, but once I realized I might have to be in a greenhouse all day long, I was like, I don't think that's what I want to do. So I switched back to wanting to do fresh flowers. And really, the only place I knew to start that wasn't starting like a brick and mortar flower shop, which I knew I didn't want to do, was weddings. It seemed to be the most sustainable, the most realistic, to do weddings out of my home rather than, try and start an entire storefront. Brick and mortar these days, it's just a totally different game.
Right.
So I just kind of fell into it. And decided weddings were where I was going to start. I have some other plans for the future, of course, but, growing slowly with weddings.
Yeah. That's amazing, because we had a similar kind of story where we just kind of fell into it,
Yeah.
Started off and, just with us two doing some acoustic duo stuff, and then before you know it, we were at our first wedding, and we were just like, all right, here we go. Do you remember what it was like doing your first weddings, like the stress or preparations, or did you have a pretty good plan going into that?
Think back. I tried to prepare as much as I could, but it's a lot of fake it till you make it, because you truly don't know what you're walking into until you do it. And every venue's different, so sometimes even now with venues I haven't done before, it kind of feels like you're walking into something that you haven't done before, even though you have.
Yeah.
But I would just say I came as prepared as possible, put my game face on, even when I was unsure about some of the things I was doing, because you really do just have to dive in.
Yeah.
Even though I was unsure on what I was doing, I just was confident and thought it through and tried to take my time talking more about installations and stuff like that, to try and just really be thorough with everything. So
you do the, like, what's it called? You press the flowers?
Yeah, so I do floral preservation. There's many different methods of floral preservation. You can put your bouquet in a frame. You can have them in resin. I don't know if you guys have seen that before. I don't do that. But you can have them preserved in resin. What I do is I press them in a press, and it's basically layers of paper and cardboard, and I deconstruct the petals off of every single flower. So I do take apart the entire thing, petal by petal, press that, takes about 4 to 6 weeks, and then I reconstruct everything, color correct it if it needs it, and then design it and put it in a frame. So I added that on in May. I just felt like it was convenient for brides, because a lot of my brides are my fresh floral brides and preservation brides, and then I also do still get a ton of brides that aren't my own fresh floral brides where I didn't make their bouquets too, and that's great. It's been a lot of fun adding that on.
Wow. So I'm sorry, I don't know like anything about the, what you do, but after you do, you design a wedding for a bride and you're setting up all their flowers. So the bride or groom, whatever, they're asking you, hey, we want this flower that you had at the wedding, or like, how exactly does it work? How does somebody come to you and say?
So I take their actual bouquet.
Okay.
Is that kind of what you're looking for there?
Yeah.
I take their actual bouquet. Usually it's the day after. Sometimes if I'm doing teardown, I'll snatch the bouquet at the end of the night and take it home with me then, if it's a bride that I'm doing the florals for. But otherwise, sometimes it's the next day. I actually get a ton of inquiries to book floral preservation the day after people's wedding, because they saw their flowers and were like, I love these, I want to keep them forever. It's crazy how many people, like, at first are like, I don't want to spend the money, and then they see the flowers and are like, okay, I have to get these preserved, and then they reach out after the wedding, and I'm like, okay, let me come and get them now so I can get them on the press as fresh as possible. But sometimes I do have to replace flowers, not very often, and the bride knows about that if something isn't in good condition when I receive it, but otherwise I'm taking their actual flowers and pressing them. So
wow. So how many frame, did you just do one frame, or since it's a bouquet, are you doing multiple? How does that work?
I offer a few different frame sizes. Some people like to do multiple, where like maybe the center frame has a photo in it with flowers around it, and then there's 2 frames that frame it on each side with designs. A lot of brides just do one frame, like an 11 by 14 size frame. I also have 16 by 20. So for what I do, a lot of people just single frames, but there are a lot of artists that do multiple frames, multiple pieces. I just tend to have brides that do one frame for the most part.
That's fascinating. I literally have never, I mean, just with, I guess, our side of things, you go and you do the wedding for the couple and you work with a team of vendors, and I feel like some vendors just don't interact with each other.
Yeah,
And
I feel that. It's interesting because I'm there kind of, I feel like when I'm there as a florist, like I'm kind of hidden more throughout the day,
yeah,
and you guys might not necessarily see me. So I always try and interact with people, but it can be really hard. Like photographers, it's super easy because they're there all day.
yeah,
Whereas I'm more like trying to not be seen, you know,
right.
running in and out and everything. But yeah, I can relate to that feeling for sure.
So, how have you been able to deal with, kind of the stress that comes, in the wedding industry? Because I feel like a lot of people, they don't necessarily know all of the work that goes into,
Yeah,
for floral.
definitely.
Oh, you're just going and setting up flowers,
Yeah.
and you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
it's a lot more.
First of all, I got used to it because that is the top thing that I hear is, oh, you're just doing the flowers, like it can't be that hard. But there truly is a lot of work that goes into it, and that's really what makes the difference between wedding flowers and just everyday flowers. Is for your wedding, I'm creating inspiration boards, I'm emailing you back and forth, we're hopping on Zoom calls, I'm creating your order and ordering your flowers, prepping my workspace, washing buckets, processing flowers, and then actually designing for your wedding. And so I guess I just kind of let it be that, not everybody's going to understand what we do, and that's okay. But also part of it is that, like, specifically couples, they're not supposed to worry about what I'm doing behind the scenes. Like, I don't want them to, there's so much work that goes into it that, like, the whole point for me is for the bride to feel like that was so easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how
Yeah.
I've gotten used to it. It's
Yeah.
frustrating at times, but like, how can you expect people to get it if they're not doing it? I'm sure you guys do the same thing. People probably say you just show up, start playing songs.
Yeah. They think we're just a human jukebox.
Yeah.
We just play whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good thing that you said there. Just, we do, just with what we are doing and interacting with the couples leading up to the wedding, we do have some of the planning side of things, but, and talking with planners and other vendors, a lot of times they're saying that same thing where it's like, we don't need the couple to know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I guess maybe just for me personally, since I like being on stage and,
Yeah.
getting attention, it's different. Because I'm like, dang, like, you didn't see all the stuff we did for you.
Yeah. And I mean, every couple is different. I have brides or planners who are like, I want nothing. Well, planners will say that the bride or the couple just wants me to take care of it. They don't want to know what's going on. But I have some brides that really do like to be a little bit more interactive in the experience, and I welcome that. Like, I've had a bride ask me for advice on what dresses are going to go with her florals for bridesmaids. So I try and kind of leave it up to them with how involved they want to be, and if they want to be a little more involved, I welcome it. But
Yeah.
it's kind of half and half with that.
Yeah. So do you ever run into a situation where a lot of times when we're working with couples, like, you make a suggestion and you feel like they don't really trust what your suggestion is, or they say something that you have to maybe manage expectations where they've, maybe they saw something on Instagram and they're like, all right, we want you to, do the flowers from the ceiling, and you're like, oh.
I try to be really honest with brides when it comes to what their budget's going to get them, what things are going to cost, and really what's realistic in the space. So I feel like my brides are usually prepared and comfortable with what the outcome's going to be. And most of the time, I feel like with the final outcome, they're usually blown away. I don't want to say blown away, but I get a lot of the time I hear like, wow, this is so much more than I ever even thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So maybe that means I do a good job managing expectations. Maybe I'm undervaluing my work, but I tend to get a lot that, it was more than they even expected. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yes.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been going strong for about a year now.
Yes. So I've been full-time for a year. I was part-time for a year before that. So this will be my third wedding season coming up.
That's crazy.
We're almost there. Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember what it was like for us when we were in like year 2
Yeah.
and year 3. And you don't have to go into too much detail, but I know that something that is difficult for vendors starting off in the industry is pretty much exactly what you said, valuing my work and then also pricing my work, you know, the way that it needs to be priced. So have you struggled with pricing, or do you feel like you've kind of got that down, or can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I've definitely struggled with that. And I feel like it's getting better this season. Like last season, I was like, gosh, I don't know. I don't want to this is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to pay to have your wedding flowers done.
Yeah.
And I have a minimum. And I read a quote that said, don't price your client based off of your pocket.
Yeah.
So for me, I might not be able to afford what they're asking for, but they can because they're asking for it. So I really can't let that influence my pricing, honest pricing still.
Yeah.
But if they're asking for a $4,000 installation,
then
that's what it's going to be, and you need to charge
Mm-hmm.
it. So that, along with feeling that I'm worth what I'm charging, I feel like that comes with time, and I feel like I'm really starting to come into that confidence, but keeping in mind to not price based off of what maybe I could afford, keeping that out of my head with pricing, and also being honest and using my pricing structure that I have too. So
Wow.
That's great.
That's great. I like that a lot. I've never heard that. Because, yeah, it is, you're looking, cause, I mean, weddings nowadays, they're just so expensive. Every single piece of the wedding. But then, it's like, well, I can't take a, loss. If it's going to cost me time and effort and energy to do this $4,000 installation, I can't be charging $2,000.
Yeah.
I also like what you said about the confidence thing, because I think that we struggle with that too at first. And honestly, I think we struggled with it for a while. Not even, I think probably year 4 or 5 maybe. Because even though we had people, we would do a wedding and we'd have people, oh man, that was so good.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And, we continued to hear that and we continued to get booked. But I still feel like we were are we that good though? And honestly, even to this day, I'm still sometimes we'll do it and I was like, was it? Are we really that good? I think that's something that's pretty common for people.
Yeah. And it's hard to ask people for money. I mean, but I feel like if you have that feeling, it means you're honest about your work and that you have integrity, because you understand it's an investment, even though you have to charge for it. It's tough.
Yeah. So with your pricing and all that, do you have are there packages, or does everything depend kind of on what the bride or the couple is asking for?
I think this is a big frustration for couples because, at least for florists, and I would say probably a lot of vendors, their pricing isn't listed on their website. You have to inquire to get it. And that's because it varies based on the look you want, the size you want, the season that you're getting married in, because things are more expensive at certain times of the year, the specific blooms that you want. I mean, there's just so much that can affect the price that we can't just put out there X amount of money for this and that. So really it does come down to the specifics of each event when it comes to pricing. So it varies greatly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's hard to set a price, and every client's gonna be different. Plus, you have to consider sometimes the distance to different weddings too. And I think we forget that sometimes, because I'm sure you probably get booked all over the place too. And there's just a lot of factors to consider. So when you're with your couples, they're a lot of times these couples, they're getting married for the very first time, and they need a lot of advice. What are some of the things you advise them with the flowers and specifically with that, like, what are some things that you hope they understand and all that?
A lot of times they come to me and they literally just say, I know nothing about flowers. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? That's fine. That's what I'm here for. And sometimes I'll guide them just on, what people usually will incorporate, but that you don't have to incorporate, of course, like you might want to do bridesmaids, bouquets, boutonnieres, corsages. You might want to have centerpieces. You don't have to have centerpieces, or we could do an installation piece for your ceremony that can then get moved. So I kind of like to just tell them all the different things we could do and then let them pick what they would like to do from that, because a lot of the times they're like, I don't even know.
Wow.
I mean, and they may not. I honestly myself haven't been to that many weddings in my life, surprisingly. I mean, I've done a lot of weddings for florals, but like personally as a guest, I would have probably walked in the same way with like what do I even do? So I guide them a lot with what to include. So
that's crazy, because I just feel like just sitting here talking, it's like I don't know, like I was saying earlier, we work with all of the vendors, and I feel for the most part we have a good grasp on what everyone does, even the caterers and stuff, and we're getting booked pretty much at the same places. And so, but like half of the things that you just listed, I would have never. I mean, I see them, we see them all the time because, we're there at the wedding. But then, we don't ever interact with. There's been maybe one time, I think once, where we showed up and they were setting up flowers.
Yeah.
Or they've had to move flowers. Mm-hmm. So, man, that's and everything just depends on what exactly they're wanting and how they want to look, and there's all the challenges you were talking about with seasonal. That's crazy.
It's
a lot to consider. Think about any of that.
It's a really interesting industry, because also people are like, gosh, you get to play with flowers all day. I'm like, this is dirty work, surprisingly. I mean, you're on your feet all day, you're lifting heavy boxes, your hands are cut apart, they're a mess. Sometimes you're installing things in 100-degree weather outside, or sometimes it's absolutely freezing. It just, as a whole, I feel like it is a very curious, like, what do they even do? Because there truly is so much behind the scenes that people don't even see. So
I feel like I'm realizing that right now. So for the like different things that you were talking about, I have to be in the heat, I have to be in the cold, all these things that vendors have to deal with. Why is it, or what is it that gives you joy in doing it to make you be like, oh, yep, on to the next one?
I like doing things for people that that will either take a lot off of their plate, or that they can't or don't want to do themselves. So if I have to stand outside for 3 hours doing a massive install in 100-degree heat so that you have a perfect floral backdrop for your ceremony, I'll do it, because for me it's all about you having everything that you wanted on your wedding day, because that's what I would want. So I guess that's what it is that I want the bride and groom, or usually it's the brides that care more about the flowers, but I want them to walk out and be like, wow, that's incredible. So I don't even think about it, honestly. Yeah
That is one of the best feelings, really. At the end of the day, we work so hard, whether that's an email later or even like the night of, just hearing them say that you're a game changer for their wedding, and that just made it really meaningful, and all the different things they say, just that's what it is for me.
Yeah, me too.
So that's good to hear that too. So, and
sometimes though you don't ever hear from them. I don't know if you guys do, but like there are some where they always say no news is good news. I think they can say no news is bad news, but if you don't hear anything from them, usually they say something when there's a problem. But when I do get that feedback, that really makes it all worth it. Either that email or message or review, whatever. Yeah, there's definitely been times where we feel like we killed it, and then we're like, send the review request, just complete silence. Yeah. For those, like,
it's actually kind of incredible, because there's some that we just everything is on, you know? We're like, oh man, like the crowd was reacting really well. We were killing the songs, and we're just in our heads like, oh, they're going to give us the best review. And then we like never hear from them again.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like if I wasn't a small business owner, I probably wouldn't think about how important it is to do that. But now I'm like, everybody needs a review. Everybody I work with, I try to, you know, do that kind of stuff. But
get a review. Yeah. I was also going to ask, because I don't, so much of what you do is behind the scenes, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that a lot of what you do, you don't even really see the results of it. You know what I mean? Like you see everything set up, but we stay till the end of the night.
Yeah.
You know, we play the music, we see it's right there. It's very transactional. We do this, they react like this. But I feel like for you, maybe, you know, you're setting up the day before or setting up early in the morning, and then you're not staying to watch bride and groom walk in and see everything, right?
no, sometimes it works out that way. Sometimes it doesn't. I usually always see the bride to give them their bridal bouquet, you know, so I at least get some kind of reaction from that. But when it comes to the reception, I've never even thought about it, but I don't see them walk in and react to it, whether it's, obviously I want it to be good. But yeah, I've never thought about how I don't see that part of it. Sometimes I come and do tear down at the end of the night, but yeah, that's interesting.
Wow. Dang. So this is like completely just kind of sidetracking, but what is the most requested flower? Is there, like, do people do that? Does bride and groom say, like, we want peonies or something? Is that a flower?
Yes, there's like, sometimes there are specific requests with the seasons, like peonies are, everybody knows what a peony is for the most part. Okay, so most people know.
I've heard the word before though.
I always ask brides if there is a flower they absolutely love that's sentimental and they must have in their bouquet, or if there's a flower that they do not like, because there are some weird, creepy looking flowers that freak some people out that I think are cool and whatnot. So I always like to double check with that. But a lot of the times, they don't come to me with specific flower requests. They come to me with a look, a photo, colors, shape, style, that kind of thing, rather than specific flowers. So I would say, of course, everybody asks for roses because I think that's just what people know. But there are also a lot of people that don't want roses, which I'm always all for because it's a little bit different. So.
And do you ever face challenges with certain types of flowers? Because I know you have the seasonal looks and things, but like, do you ever get into a situation where a couple's like, we want this, and it's like not that time of the year, and then like, what do you do in those situations? Like, has that a common thing at all, or?
Well, in my contract, I have a clause at least that says, like, this is a perishable product. So due to storm, due to seasonality, due to a product just not coming in looking good, I can substitute anything at any time, but it's going to maintain both color and design integrity towards the original design. So I'm honest with them that, like, if they really want Cosmos, I'm like, okay, I'll do my best to get it. I can't promise it, but I'm going to do my best, you know, and 90% of the time I can get what they want. But there is crazy stuff that happens where there might be a storm wherever the fields are that the flowers are getting cut and we can't get those flowers, which is something a lot of people don't think about. But, you know,
never thought about
you think about it and you're like, okay, you know, and most flowers are coming in from South America through Miami and then getting branched out to all of the states, because the United States doesn't grow a whole lot, not on a mass production scale. They don't grow a whole lot of flowers. There's a ton of local growers popping up everywhere, which is great, but there's also those logistics too. I've had weddings where the flowers are 3 days late and I'm like, all I can do is wait, you know, I mean, all I can do is wait, and when the flowers get here, get to rolling. But that's another thing you got to think about.
So what, like, I'm like mind blown right now. So I have two questions, but if the flowers are late, you know, you said you have the clause, but do you just have a backup flower and that amount of flowers? You know what I mean? Because if they don't come in, then what do you do?
Usually when that happens, it's just a few specific types, not the entire shipment. But I will talk to local growers. I'll go to other wholesalers here in town. Or if it's like, say it's a very specific flower and it's not going to come in time, or when it does, it also doesn't look good because it's been on an airplane for or in transit for however many days, I simply won't use it and I'll replace it, which sometimes is a loss on my part, but it's really important to me that you have the best, highest quality blooms on your wedding day. So, just figuring it out. That's a lot of it. A lot of it is just figuring it out.
Yeah, you just have to because.
Yeah.
So, is there a specific time or formula that you have to use to be able to order the flowers? Because, I don't know how flowers work, but if you order them too early, then they will look, dead or whatever by the time it's time to use them. But if you order them too,
so like for when they arrive or when I call and place the order, you probably
just anything. I don't know. I don't know any of it.
At least for me, I don't know. I can't speak for other florists, but I place my orders 3 weeks ahead of time, before the wedding. 3 weeks before the wedding. That sounds really late to a lot of people, but that's when your sales rep is going to know what's ready to be cut in the field, what's ready to get harvested. So 3 weeks prior is when I place my floral order, and then I have my flowers come in usually on Wednesdays for a Saturday wedding and on Tuesdays for a Friday wedding. But I have I have coolers, and my workshop is got AC and I crank that down. So Tuesday or Wednesday are when I actually will get the flowers for the weekend. So I'm working all of those days before. Usually, since it's just me, usually very long days. But yeah, otherwise you actually order the flowers only 3 weeks before the wedding, which freaks them out a little bit because it's close, but it's the most accurate time for your wholesaler to know what they're going to have. So
yeah, it's all about timing, it sounds like.
Yep. So on my calendar for every wedding, I have that 3 week prior marked out for order flowers. So.
Wow.
I feel like I'd be so anxious about that all the time.
I used to be, yeah. I used to be.
You just never know with like you didn't have to do through the pandemic. Does it sound like, because you started about a year ago, right? But if it was like ever an issue with shipping, I feel like I'd be
freaking out.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Like, do you just have we didn't get the roses in, but I got these extra that I've just had,
So that's really what sets me apart from just a flower shop, right? Because a regular brick and mortar flower shop, they do weddings, but they also do, I call them daily arrangements. Like I brought you guys today, I brought you guys flowers. So they have, they have extras in the cooler. Since I call myself a studio florist, like an independent florist that operates out of a shop in their home with no retail storefront, I only have the flowers that I'm working with that week. I never have back stock. So that's also why I have to have a minimum. That's why I don't take daily orders, is because I don't have back stock. And that's why you really have to be intentional with your ordering down to the last stem, because if I have leftover flowers, that's messing with my margin. And I mean, I could try and sell them on Instagram or something, but that's just way too much work. And it's a loss. So that's something that is a little bit more difficult about what I do, since I don't have that back cooler full of stuff like a flower shop does, but that's just part of the job.
This literally sounds so complicated.
You're making me think it's complicated.
I'm blown away right now, because I'm just thinking I could never do that, because you have to order the exact amount of flowers.
Yeah. So
what if you mess up a flower? What if you cut one too short?
Yeah.
There's a buffer, obviously, and there are many times where I just go to either a local grower or wholesaler and get a couple extra things. It might, hurt my margin a little bit, but I want my designs to be right. And I feel like there's always going to be that room for error, but it's kind of a science you come down to. I have spreadsheets that I've worked on for hours that calculate out what I need and what that costs, because also something interesting about flowers is when you go into the wholesaler, nothing's priced. because it's market pricing and it changes daily. So you don't know what your flowers are going to cost you until the day they get shipped or the day you pick them up.
Wow.
So I can like kind of have an idea by guessing. Like, you know, I know roses are typically between this much and this much, but it can fluctuate. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to know.
Am I the only one right now?
No, you're not. If you're a florist, you have to, for weddings specifically, you just have to be on top of all the small details.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
my gosh. So there's a chance then that you could, you know, because you're usually booking a wedding, you know, 6 to 12 months in advance.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that they could sign the contract, and then by June of next year, the price of that flower has drastically changed.
Yes and no. I mean, it's not a super significant change. It's more like between like a couple cents and $1, but that adds up when you're buying hundreds of blooms for a wedding.
Yeah.
But I would say more with just the overall price of the wedding. Like if I had someone that booked a year ago for a wedding that's in 3 months, they're getting a cheaper price than the people who are booking today for a wedding in 3 months because my prices have gone up with time.
Yeah.
That kind of doesn't answer your question, but yeah. And sometimes I calculate wrong and, you know,
you have to take a loss.
I just take a loss. So,
Part of being a business
I mean,
owner.
I think the goal is to always minimize that, but I
Right.
try to not let that limit what the final outcome is going to be, because I would never want someone to be like, oh, this just isn't what I expected, just because I didn't want to take a small loss on my profit margin.
So did you have to learn a lot of this on your own, or did you learn this when you were at the floral shop, or how did you?
Because there is some states have flower school.
Oh.
I don't know. I just know that there are some states where they have schools for it. I don't think they have that. They don't have that in Nebraska. They have like floral design class at UNL. But that's not really giving you any of this. It's just the basics and like making pretty stuff.
Okay.
But I would say a lot of it came from industry experience. A lot of it came from watching what other people do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to sound creepy, but like just really looking at how other people do things and taking that and turning it into your own, and then also just learning along the way. So I felt like I had a pretty good basis going into weddings, from the flower shop into weddings with like pricing and things like that. But when it comes to more industry standards specific to weddings themselves, I feel like that was a lot of learning on the go.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel this is very similar for bands too, because especially cover bands, we have to learn the songs the way they're done. So I don't think it's creepy at all to be like watching other people, and you get inspired by seeing other people do certain things, and that's not a bad thing at all. So
I'm amazed. So
yeah.
I don't know if there is, you know, obviously you see how we are oblivious to, you know, floral design and all that, but is there a way, artists, for example, you know, they put their signature on the bottom of their painting. As the band, you know, we try to have our own signature look or something that sets us apart from other bands. How do you do that in, you know, because how do I tell your bouquet apart from
That's a really good
his,
question.
you know, do you put like a hint of love in it, or like what?
No, I try to stand out just with the delivery of the flowers and like the presentation of that. But you know, there's no like little watermark on my flowers that says that I did it. So I think that's something that just kind of gets lost sometimes.
Yeah.
Most of the time I get tagged by the photographers. If I don't, I do get a little bit upset. Because I'm so excited to see these pictures. Like I'm just excited. I feel like I'm just excited as the bride to see the actual pictures. So I usually get credited in that way. But otherwise, it goes I guess I might need to think of a way to, you know, do that. But yeah.
The unsung heroes for real.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was wondering, like design or stylistically, if there's, I mean, it just depends on what they're asking for, but maybe your designs look more.
Yeah. So I personally can tell with different florists in the area, like, oh, I know who did that. Just based on their style, because I've looked at their stuff so much.
Okay.
So personally, sometimes I can kind of tell. There's just a few that I really admire, and so I know that it's their work. But there are some florists who refuse to take weddings with certain aesthetics because it's not their brand style, and they really want to keep it cohesive with the style and design of their pieces. I'm not really like that, to a point. I mean, there's certain stuff that I don't love to do. Like, I really don't love to do a bouquet that's just roses. I really like color and unique textures and unique design, but I still want to do flowers for people who want me to do flowers for them. So some people are really picky with that to keep their styles cohesive, but I'm not quite so much that way.
Wow. So for the couples that I would imagine for what you do specifically, there are couples that are just like, oh, we could do it ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
oh, we'll just put, some flowers together. Because I feel like that's what I would be thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, just get some roses,
Yeah.
get some roses from Walmart and put them out on the table. Like, so what do you discourage them from doing that, or why do you discourage couples from doing kind of the DIY type of?
I feel like I'll never get over how my heart hurts when I hear people say that. Because some people, you'll never be able to convince them that what I do is worth the money.
Right.
And that's I feel like that's a really big thing for florists, is there are some people where no matter what, they don't think it's worth it. So I don't try too hard to convince people. I try to be honest with them and say, you can definitely DIY, but here's what could go wrong.
Yeah.
It might not go wrong. But you could end up really stressed out, frustrated with the outcome, not able to get flowers. It can go really well, and it can be a complete disaster when you DIY. So I try to be honest with them and tell them that a lot of the times, once the day is said and done, you're going to be so much happier knowing that you paid someone to do it so that you didn't have to worry about it, rather than save some money by trying to do it yourself or have friends do it for you and whatnot. And also it comes down to the look you want. Some people just don't value flowers as much as others, and that's totally fine. If they want to do their own because it's just not as important to them, that's okay. But I try to really stick with brides or couples that do value me doing it for them, rather than DIY. So it's a really tough one. I see like TikToks of people who are like, I DIY'd my flowers because my florist quoted me 10 grand, which it can be expensive, but I'm always like, oh, it makes me sad.
Yeah, I think it's hard to remember because, DIY, it's going to save you money, but people are forgetting the amount of service and work it goes into that, and how much of a benefit is having somebody really do it outside of your family or yourselves. Because we were talking about this last time, brides, we've seen, like when we were first starting off, we had our lower budget packages and stuff. We could tell there was some DIYing being done in different areas, and you just tell the bride and groom were just super stressed out and not really enjoying their day. So when it comes to weddings, this could be including other vendors too. If you had like unlimited budget, like what are things, or like a certain budget, I guess, what things would you splurge on, and what would you save on, you think? Is there like a kind of order you think that's?
I would splurge on your bridal bouquet. I also, personally, some people think it's a total waste of money. I think bridesmaids bouquets are really important. And then I think it's at least important for the groom to have a boutonniere. So many people are like, boutonnieres are a waste of money. You don't have to put them on the groomsman, but at least put them on the groom because it's his day. He needs flowers. Yeah. But I just think it really makes them look cohesive. I also would say put more money into statement pieces rather than having flowers everywhere. Rather than having 10 bud vases down a table and a couple bud vases on the guest book table and a couple little things here, do a large ceremony arch install that you can then move to the reception and repurpose behind a sweet art table. Or do a big seating chart statement floral installation piece with, you know, people do like those wood displays. Focus more on the big stuff. A lot of people, when they're trying to save money, they think, okay, let's do a lot of small stuff, but that adds up because you're doing a lot of the small things, rather than maybe having more impact by doing just a few larger statement pieces.
Wow.
Nice.
I just feel like I'm learning so much today. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the next wedding that we do, I'm just
start
gonna
looking
You're
be
going
looking
to
at
see
the
it very
flowers.
differently.
I'm like, yeah, I still want to be able to tell what a peonies is, but dang,
Yeah.
that's insane. So, what's something that do you have a goal or a certain type of wedding that you're like, oh, I really want to be able to do this type of wedding, or there's a certain design that I haven't been able to do that I really want to do, but it's going to have to be at this type of wedding? Does that make sense?
Not necessarily. I want to do more large, like, ceremony installs. So basically, like, behind the couple, right? Like, they have an arch or something, or the arch is completely flowers. I want to do more of that. But as a whole, I don't really have anything specific aside from, like, doing more weddings that are more colorful. Not that all white is boring. I really like to get into unique textures and colors. So that would probably be a goal as well.
Okay. Do you have a certain thing that, like, for example, you just said color. Do you have a certain thing that when couples ask you to do it, you just get really excited about doing it over others? Or
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm excited to do everybody's flowers. I take
Yeah.
the same amount of time on everyone's proposals, and I probably take way too long on proposals. But, you know, there are some color palettes that I maybe haven't done before that I'm really excited to get my hands on. I've got some of those in my head for this year coming up. But overall, I love bringing all of them to life, you know, and just seeing the outcome on all of them is so rewarding.
Yeah. Now, on the flip side of that, have you ever had a couple ask you for something just kind of random, or maybe the colors clash or something? Like, I had a friend a while back, and she did, like, floral design. I think they were asking for, like, Halloween type of color flowers or something. Like, do you have stuff that's weird that people are asking for?
If someone asked me to do, like, a super themed something like that, I'd probably tell them I'm just not the right fit. But I have couples who want to do super moody, dark, like burgundies and black and all that. I'm totally for that. I think if they were more themed, like specifics with Halloween or something, I just don't feel like that's my strength.
Yeah.
You know?
It's not your jam.
So I would probably just be honest and say I'm not the right fit for you. And that's what I always try and do with any bride, is just be honest with them on all aspects of the process.
Yeah, it's just easier that way, and it's less stress. And yeah, I think that sometimes it's hard for certain people that want to keep doing it and keep grinding and getting as many couples.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to remember to be able to just let them know you're not the fit, and at least maybe recommending something else to them. So I know that was hard for us in the beginning.
Yeah.
We were just like, oh, we're gonna go do everything, like, and then we realized how crazy that can get. So
Yeah, it can be good, and I think at the beginning you do kind of need to take whatever you can get, but I think it gets to a point where you can really hone in on your craft and be a little bit more choosy. Yeah. Not do everything.
right.
You could, but
Yeah, that was definitely difficult for us when we first started out, because we were just so focused on getting our name out that we were just like anything.
Yeah.
Or we would have and especially back then when we weren't priced anywhere close to where we should be or where we are now. but we would always be trying to make deals with everybody too. Like they would see our price and we'd be like, oh no, like we'll knock off this much, because we just we're like, we need to get our name out there. And I feel like we spent so much time in that zone of just, we'll do anything. And
yeah, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago we started realizing we could say no, or being okay with letting it go of a project or a wedding or something. So
and I don't know about you guys, but in the beginning I definitely got that feeling of, I have to take this inquiry because what if I don't get another inquiry?
Right,
you know, like what if this is it? So you like kind of grab onto whatever you can get, and then later on you reflect and you're like, okay, I could have been more thoughtful, because business is going to come to you slowly but surely, you know, it'll build. So I definitely felt in the beginning like almost desperation, like I have to take it, I have to get it. When now it's like, you know what, it's not right if they don't want it. So
that's so crazy, because I think that, I don't know, I just don't think people on the outside, and you know, why would they, but they don't realize that desperation. You know? That like any vendor or business owner, that you're just, when you're first starting out, you're just trying to do whatever you can. And, you know, there's so many things that you're trying to think about. How do I market? How do I, you know, did you have, or do you have someone that is kind of like coaching you on the business aspect of things or anything like that?
Nope, it's just me. It's just me. Social media, bookkeeping, all of it. I do it myself. I haven't had a mentor or anything. I've learned in the past from a lot of incredible designers, but it is just me by myself, which I don't really want that to change, because I really like the authenticity of me being the one that works with you and being the one that creates the final product.
So you don't have any plans of, you know, 5 years from now you have like
a bunch of
6
employees
florists working for you, or designers?
Right now, no. I don't ever want a brick and mortar, ever. My dream is to have a gorgeous studio, like garage, at my home. I have a workshop now, but it's, you know, it's not perfect. It's not everything I want it to be. It's amazing, but I have freelancers that help sometimes, but I don't ever want it to reach so far as I'm not the one that's communicating with the bride really from start to finish. I just feel like I want to make the experience more special and more personal and more curated, which is kind of why I went off on my own, is I don't want the bride to feel like another number. I don't want them to feel like just another date in my books. So I don't really want to grow to that point. I would like to get it to a point where it's going really good for me, but I don't also want to have other people and their paychecks on my conscience, like needing to bring in enough money to pay them. That stresses me out. Who knows, you know, but I just want it to be just me and freelance help when I need it. So so obviously there's a limit to how much I can grow with that, but I wonder if that will change, or how that will change. But so that's not one of your goals. That's totally fine. I can appreciate that. So what does Petal Collective look like in the next 5 years, 3 years? I would like to really curate, and I guess this kind of goes against what I said earlier, but really curate my look, or at least what my brand is, and really kind of become my own force. I feel like I'm still kind of figuring out what I want the brand to look like, and social media, which is a headache. But really like getting that kind of stuff streamlined and really having a strong brand is my goal moving forward, and getting to know more people, getting my name out there. Not having to, not saying not having to worry about getting bookings, but I'm sure as a wedding vendor, you guys can relate, like the winter time, things are slow. So I would like to get to a point where I'm confident in looking ahead.
I think it will come, because I think, I mean, people have been asking us, you know, what do you guys do in your slow season? And for the last 2 years, we haven't had a slow season. We
Yeah.
have, I think at the most,
Yeah.
we have maybe 1 or 2 spots where we'll have, a weekend off or 2 weekends off. But for the most part, we don't really have a slow season. And it wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
There was a time where it's like from December to March.
Yeah.
It was like, all right, well.
Yeah. This is the first year where I'm like chasing my tail. I really thought I'd get a break, which it's amazing that it's been so busy. But this is the first like winter where I'm like, I need a second to like get ready for the upcoming season. But yeah, so definitely.
Yeah, I remember we got to the point where we had to make sure we know about everyone's kids' birthdays, anniversaries in the band, all the stuff, so that we're not interfering and just making everybody's weekends booked up. So
Yeah.
it's important to remember to give yourself rest and make sure you're taking care of yourself. Because being a business owner all by yourself, especially, like there's just so much you have to do, and especially like right now, I have tax season and all that stuff. So
Yeah, it's 24/7, and you really can't get it till you do it. I know you guys totally know what I mean, but your work emails are right on your phone, social media, it's right there.
Yeah.
You can always be doing something, and it's hard to not.
Yeah. I know for me personally, I'm very competitive. And so if I'm looking through social media or something and I see there was a huge event and they had a band and I'm just like, dang, like, why weren't we a part of that? Do you have that same type of, or is it more just kind of like, oh,
Yeah, no, I feel that. And especially when you get to know vendors and you network and you kind of grow, your circle a little bit, and you see, oh, this person got to choose who they worked with and they picked someone else. I definitely can get competitive and jealous, but I try my best to just rely on the fact that if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. If it's not, you know what? It wasn't supposed to go that way, or it wasn't supposed to be me that got that wedding, or, I also have really tried hard to appreciate specifically other florists' work rather than be like, oh, that looks really good. I'm like, that looks amazing. You did a great job, because there's room for all of us.
Yeah.
I've really tried to kind of change my mindset in that way, because it's super easy to feel competitive, but there's room for all of us. There are obviously some growth things that I would like to be bigger at or be better at than some others, but I feel like that also is just the competitive mindset and growing a business. So
Yeah, which I feel like you kind of have to have as a business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Changing gears a little bit, since you've started doing this and you've learned a lot being a floral designer, our podcast is kind of aimed towards other vendors, maybe some that are looking to become a floral designer themselves. Are there, what's the most important advice you'd want to give to them if they're looking to start?
I actually get a lot of newbies. I don't want to call them newbies, but I actually get a lot of new florists or people that want to get into the wedding industry in my DMs. And my biggest thing is the best time to start is now. You're never going to have a perfect business plan or, a perfect logo or a perfect website. You really just have to start today. Because if I wouldn't have started 2.5 years ago, I wouldn't have grown like I did now to be where I am now. If I had started today, I still would have had to go through those 2 years of growth and all of the learning. So I say that to just so many people. I have friends and family or whatever who are like, I've just always wanted to do this. I'm like, do it. Do it right now.
Yeah.
And you also can't be afraid to be cringy, especially with social media. I look back on some of my posts and I'm like, but if you're not feeling that way, I also feel like you're not growing. So if I look back on a post from a year ago and I'm like, ugh, that means I've grown. So don't be afraid to be cringy. And also this is kind of a lifestyle as well. It's a different life from just clocking in and clocking out. This is all the time. And truly, I feel like sometimes even family members don't get it, but it's work is 24/7 on my mind all the time. And also everything falls on me, Everything falls on me. If a bride is unhappy or something falls through, I got to make sure it's right or I'm getting in trouble, which is what I never want. So I tell them that, and then I also tell them, that's probably most of what I tell them.
Just to get,
but you've got to start somewhere. And you really need to, like I said, observe other people around you, because there isn't necessarily a handbook to doing this. There is no handbook. So start now and just put yourself out there. Be cringy. I hate saying that, but with social media, it's so important to figure out what your niche is with your type of content that you post. You know, some people they post themselves on their social media, and some people post just professional photos of their work. So kind of finding where you want to be in that, and not being afraid to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I feel like what you said is just such a, I mean, obviously we can all relate because we're in the same, but, excuse me, it's so difficult because, you know, your weekends are pretty much, they're gone.
Yeah.
Like, just completely shot. Because you're doing, you know, usually your wedding's on Saturday, and there's so much work that goes into that a lot of times your Sunday is pretty much shot too, because, you know, I don't want to make it seem like we're just, you know, going through like the worst conditions, but there's like a
exhausting.
physical and mental toll.
Yeah.
You know, on Sunday when you like your
stop.
body physically is like, oh my gosh, like I just need a rest.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, for you specifically, you know, and with us it's the same too. We're always, you know, right now we're planning for the weddings and, you know, whenever, but every single day we're doing something for some event. And so do you find it hard to kind of balance, you know, your personal life, you know, hanging out with family, friends and stuff, and having this as your job?
I know that the big trend right now is to have boundaries, but I don't. I don't have boundaries. I should. I have some, right? But I will work late into the night if I want to. I don't have... all I do is work. I don't know about you guys. It's all I really want to do. I mean, obviously, like, I have family, I have a boyfriend, I hang out with friends, but, like, this is my business and it's also my hobby. So there's not a whole lot of balance. I'm sure in the coming years that'll change, but yeah, not a whole lot of balance there.
Yeah.
So, and that might just be my personality. I don't know. I often feel like there's so much time that I could be maximizing on to grow in whatever way, improving my website, posting on social media, following up with brides, anything.
Yeah, you could always be doing something. Do you have, this is kind of going back, but I had thought about this question when you answered. For us, I know that we have specific events or specific, you know, corporate entities or something that we want to work with. Like, it's on our like goals. It's like, all right, we gotta, like, one of them for a really long time was the Omaha Fashion Week. It's like we have to perform at like an after party or something like that. Do you have something similar to that, like a venue or you know, maybe I want to do a wedding in Hawaii or something? Do you have something like that?
I would say more the size of a wedding. Like, I would really love to land a large, high budget floral wedding, you know, like something really crazy and like not ridiculous, but like a lot of flowers.
Just
like,
crazy.
More than what most people do, you know. Something like that, I think, is a goal for me. But yeah, I mean, I would love to travel and do some weddings in other places. But yeah, I would say really, really getting like a high budget wedding where I can create really incredible installations. When I say installation, I mean like something that hangs from the ceiling or something that's on a structure. Basically like a freestanding floral piece is what I mean by that. So yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything major though. Maybe I should. But,
No, I've seen those like Instagram where they got flowers hanging from the ceiling. Actually, we've been a part of some of those weddings where they've got some crazy floral design. We were part of one that had flower on the stage that we were performing on. They had flowers all over the stage, and that was pretty nuts. So, yeah. Well, I just feel like I've learned so much about floral design today. But yeah, before we kind of wrap things up, I guess, where is the best place for people to, if they want to book you and Petal Collective, how do they get a hold of you? Where do they find information about you?
kind of depends on your preference. Instagram and Facebook. And then on there is my inquiry form. That's going to be the best way to get things going, is to inquire. I know it seems annoying sometimes to fill that kind of stuff out, but I will email you back probably within the hour. And then I do have my website, which I'm working on because, websites are tough. But that's another place where you can see my work. But I do solely rely, another thing is I solely rely on Instagram and Facebook for all of my, I don't pay for any advertising with anybody. That's where all my leads come from. So social media is where to find me. Inquiry form.
Very good. Very good. Well, it's been amazing having you on the show today. Thank you so much. Like I said, I feel like I need to go home and just rethink just a bunch of
Learned
stuff.
a lot today, yeah.
Yeah, my brain is broken right now. But yeah, the last thing that we kind of do on the show, it's kind of gimmicky, but when we're part of the weddings as a vendor, we don't really, a lot of times we can get overlooked. We'll go to like the cake table or whatever after everything's done. There's nothing left for us. So part of what we do on the show is we give our vendors some cake that they can enjoy, just to say that we appreciate you and what you do as a vendor, and it doesn't go unnoticed.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes you don't get. Sometimes it's late at night when you're finally getting to take a break.
Right.
I try to